This technique is just a combination of several that you may be familiar with, but by doing them in combination, you keep more students engaged at one time. So in preparation, I have a list of questions. In my case, this was for an Intro to Lit class, so I was having the students discuss two different stories, and I had questions prepared under various headings, like characterization, setting, those kinds of things. I had 4 categories of questions on 2 stories. I gave one student in the class this stack of index cards that had every student's name on them. And you may do that, have students write something about themselves at the beginning of the year. So I had these, I handed them to a student who then drew one card out. That would be the student who now had to answer the next question. That student took a quarter and had to flip the coin. Heads was one story, tails was the other story. Then another student took the grab bag. The bag contains the categories of questions that I had, and I duplicated them so it felt like there was more in the bag. So I was going to ask questions on figurative language, point of view, characterization, and setting on that day. So someone would draw one of those, and I had my questions divided up into these 4 categories. So then I knew it was a question on this story about setting, and this person was going to answer it. To me, I now had 3 or 4 students engaged and listening and responding, and they weren't waiting for me to just go down a roster and call somebody's name. They seemed to like it. There was a little bit of nervousness at the beginning, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get called, and then I have to flip the coin, and what story do I get? But of course, this can be modified for various fields of study as well, too. You would just need to have your questions prepared, decide what your categories were, and of course, you can use these separately as well. I have done it where we just did the coin toss to see what kind of question we're going to answer or what field we're going to look at today. Or you can just draw names rather than call names off the roster. But I found in combination, I had the maximum number of students engaged at one time. I think it asked the students to take a bit of responsibility for how the time in the classroom operates. Instead of always seeing me as the director of what's going to happen next, now I have this person picking names. They have a bit of ownership in it. The person drawing the type of question has a bit of ownership. So it gets some students involved who maybe typically aren't involved. I would give the index cards to one of those shy students who seems to be engaged but not willing to talk all the time. So they are now interacting with each and every person in the class by calling their name and figuring out who that person is.